Great. So this scenario is scenario number 2, presented by the lovely Table 11. This project would provide low-rise, 4-story affordable rental housing for families. Overall, this whole proposal had a focus on both family housing and having the amenities of housing focused on families, as well as sort of the green space be more family-focused. So just something to keep in mind. And these 4-story buildings would provide 37 apartments to the neighborhood, which is about 45,000 square feet, and would make up 43% of the built space of the parcel. Now, coming in at a close second for this proposal was green space. They proposed just over 42,000 square feet of green space, which is about 38% of the built space on the site. It is, a significant portion of the site. The green space they wanted located on the plaza, and they wanted the 4-story buildings on the Ennis Street parking lot. In terms of parking, they proposed 70 internal parking spots. So internal meaning first floor drive-in parking, not surface, but not a parking garage. Just to keep that in mind. And they did have a small amount of space, just over 2,500 square feet dedicated to nonprofit uses, and they specified an orientation towards arts and art centers. So they didn't propose any retail, just something to keep in mind here. And if you look further down on your fact sheet, the total project cost was $17.8 million. And Yona walked through this earlier, but one of the ways that developers use to test the financial feasibility is to look at covering 120% of your development and operation costs with revenues. So in this case, the gap, when using that threshold, was just around $7 million. So overall, what we see here is a site with low residential units and a lot of green space. And again, the green space, it did come with a cost in the pro forma, and the residential really wasn't kind of subsidizing it as much as it maybe could have in another situation. So some of the proposals that we're suggesting here in terms of ways to make it more financially viable would be to replace half of the green space with 33 market rate residential units, and to make the existing buildings slightly more dense, so adding 2 stories to those. So just to give you a little bit of perspective about what replacing half of the green space looks like. So they proposed, was it 42,000 square feet of green space? And here we're talking about replacing half. So you'd still be left with something like 20 to 22,000 square feet, which is essentially triple the size of Woodward Plaza right outside your window, or about 5 times the size of the room we're in now. So you would still be left, with a sizable part of the parcel with green space, but it would make the project 100% financially feasible. So if we were moving to the keypad questions, this would be your second question, so just write 2, and then your answer. So the question here is, are you open to reducing the green space on the site from 42,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet? So again, 20,000 square feet is still about 5 times the size of this room. What did I say? 3 times the size of Woodward Plaza. A is yes, B is no, C is unsure. So essentially, are you okay with the feedback the developers were giving? Is really what I'm trying to get at. I see a question in the back. It's 38% of the built space. Built space would include the buildings as well. Yeah, so if you prefer it to think of it a different way, so 22,000 square feet is essentially a third of the parcel. If you want to think of it in terms of just kind of the open space as it exists. So are you comfortable reducing from about 2/3 of the parcel to 1/3 of the parcel. Because that's really what this proposal had. And this proposal really looked like a lot of the other proposals that propose, between half to 3/4 of the whole parcel's square footage be open space or green space. Yes, so, right, so, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we would still be keeping the exact number of units proposed here. So they proposed 37 affordable rental units. The way we're asking the question, and this will be the next question, is really, would you be okay leaving those 37 units affordable and adding 33 at market rate? That's the next question. Right now? No, it's okay. So unless people have clarifying questions now, why don't we answer this question? I'll repeat the answers one more time. Are you open to reducing the green space on this site from 42,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet to improve the financial viability? A is yes, B is no, C is unsure. Okay, and why don't I also do the show of hands? If you voted yes, please raise your hand. No? Unsure? Oh, someone sure. All right, was that maybe 50-50? It's hard to tell from here. More green. Yeah, that's what it looks slightly more, but it's a little hard to tell. Okay, so let's move to question 3. Please write 3 and then your answer. So to this gentleman's question, are you open to adding 33 market rate units and leaving the 37 units of affordable housing and green space on the site? So this really is another way of sort of, by charging market rate rents, you're trying to subsidize for what it costs to pay for and operate the green space and the affordable housing. So are you open to adding 33 market rate units on the site? Yeah, A is yes, B is no, and C is unsure. Two stories to the existing building. So those sketches are really meant as concepts. I'm not sure which building the table was proposing it on. We will ask a building height question later, so stay tuned for that, as well as a parking. Sure.
On this scenario, the developer's comments seem to be packaged and this and then get that result. It's a little unfair to separate what you're doing, because if you add the 33 units, they want you to add the 2 stories.
Okay. I think, yeah.
I'm just thinking on the other. I
Yeah.
know that.
Okay, yeah, so we are also trying, again, this is an exercise in trying to determine people's priorities. So sometimes these questions, we'll have them together, sometimes we'll have them separated. So, yes, I will repeat it, and this time you can raise your hand after you write the answer. Are you open to adding 33 market rate units on this site? A, yes. B, no. C, unsure. Yeah.
I find the question confusing because the question that you asked before contradicts this question now. So in order to have those 33 units, you have to get rid of the green space. So I vote yes to that question. I'm also voting yes to get rid of the green space. Is that correct?
You're replacing the green space with red.
Okay, all right. So good, excellent question. So to clarify, the reason we suggest that you would have to add the 2 stories is that in order to ask the second question, we're saying you're adding the extra units on top of the building without getting rid of the green space. The first question was asking, would you just get rid of the green space and replace it with something, okay? Does that make sense to everyone? So they're two different questions. Don't consider them intertwined.
Are the 2 stories being added to the tallest building? So that's going from a 4-story building to a 6-story.
So the 2 stories would be added wherever on top of the buildings. It does not specify, but we will have a question later in the night where we ask you about your preferred heights for buildings. So that's when you can address that question.
Great. So I believe that is our last question. I think it's, yeah. We're going to move on to the third scenario. This was presented by table 12.
All right, so again, that was question number 3. And ma'am, did you have a question? Sorry about that. You didn't vote? So, question 3, are you open to adding 33 market rate housing units on top of the 37 affordable housing units? Yes, A. No, B. Unsure, C. So, if you support the idea of adding the market rate units to help support the affordable housing, raise your hand. Okay. And if you do not support adding any market rate units, raise your hand. Okay? Great. No, the majority was for not adding any market rate units. All right, so moving on to scenario 3.